Hi everyone, Helen Taylor here. Welcome to my show, Inspired Radio. I'm here with you every Wednesday for conversations and stories to inspire you. Firstly, before we get started, I'd love to thank our sponsors. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You support and keep this show going, so thank you so much. Inspired Radio is all about change and getting uncomfortable and shaking up the status quo. We are here breaking free from limiting systems and limiting lives and embracing our infinite potential. My guests are here to tell their story because storytelling is creating a new world. So let's get started. Today I've got Max Lowen with me. She's a survivor, an advocate, and trauma recovery specialist whose life story is both harrowing and deeply inspiring. Having endured abuse, trafficking, and unimaginable trauma in her early years, Max has spent decades on a journey of healing and transformation. Despite the darkness that she's been through, Max's story is ultimately one of hope, strength, and reclaiming personal power. So get ready to have your perspective and your perception of this reality challenged. Get ready to explore the remarkable capacity of the human spirit to overcome adversity, because that is Max. Hi, Max. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction and for having me on.
You're welcome. I want to hear this story, but before we do, I want to ask you a question. What is a global citizen?
Well, a global citizen as far as I refer to that for myself, I grew up and lived in many different countries on different continents in Africa, in Latin America, in Europe, and in North America.
Mhm.
And I grew up speaking several languages. So the way I was formed wasn't in one culture, which then usually if you grow up that way and then you eventually go to another culture, you have culture shock because it challenges the way that you have internalized things are because people do things very differently in different cultures. So
Sure.
for me, I never got formed that way. I was just always in a different way of doing things. So I think that there's a different mindset, a different, like I look at different cultures and different kinds of people as exciting and something interesting, whereas a lot of times humans have a little bit of fear or, there's a little hesitation when someone is different. So, and I don't feel that I belong to any nationality. Like I don't identify as American or Italian or anything. I just identify as human. So I think that's maybe how I would define it.
I love that. I love that explanation. You've got no resistance to change.
Yeah,
That's what it says to me, right? Which is,
yeah,
I think it's a program that a lot of people are caught in, and they think it's comfort and they think it's safety.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
So tell me, how does the Vatican, how is that a part of your upbringing?
Well, this may or may not shock some people, but the Vatican is one of the main factions of what I call the global satanic cult that runs our planet.
Mhm.
Now, people may have heard of the Freemasons, the Illuminati, even maybe the Black Sun, the Black nobility. The Black nobility is the Vatican lineage. So the Vatican is an organization that on the surface looks to be a religion and a Catholic church,
Yep.
but actually is much, much deeper than that. As you know, one thing they do is that's where the whole birth, registering the birth came into being.
Yep.
And so they're tasked with ownership of souls and they're tasked with mind control. So the Jesuits are one of the most evil groups on the planet.
Mhm.
And so them and the Nazis, for example, are instrumental in having created MK Ultra and all forms of trauma-based mind control.
Yep.
So unfortunately, I was trafficked out of the Vatican along with other children. I was taken to an underground Jesuit facility often where I was tortured in various ways with electric shock and obviously I don't know if I can say the four-letter R word without you being censored, but violation,
Mhm.
um, uh, being kept in isolation, cages, having to watch animals and other people be tortured and killed, and all these kinds of things. And this facility under the ground, which exists in every country, was connected to the subterranean levels of the Vatican. And they have a special room down there with a marble altar where they do rituals and they sacrifice babies and small children. They brutalize them to get the adrenaline running in the blood, and then they will cut the child open while they're alive. They collect the blood in these ornate chalices that they have. It's a big ritual. There are people in there. There are high level Vatican people. There are VIPs in every industry. Um, and they partake in drinking the blood. It's a ritual to the sacrifices for Lucifer. So the Vatican is, in fact, Luciferian. That's who their real God is.
Mhm.
So I was there and witnessed these rituals several times. I was put through other rituals, through them that involve mock crucifixions. I was taken to these elite parties on grounds, the hunting parties, where they send you to hide in the woods and then hunt you. The ones indoors in beautiful mansions, the balls, the masked balls, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, the Vatican has abused countless millions, maybe billions of children over the time of their existence.
It's incredibly hard for a lot of people that haven't been down these rabbit holes. And I, I really think, thank you so much for being so frank and open because we have to wake up. We have to wake up. And sometimes people need a bit of an energetic smack across the face to wake up. Shock is sometimes the only way to get people out of a deep sleep or unconscious or whatever you want to call it. But, what you're saying is that we think from what we're taught that these sorts of practices are barbaric and they're in the past, they're in our history, and they were just ancient cultures that were doing stuff like that, but it never stopped, did it? It never
No,
stopped.
no, it just went under the ground and literally under the ground. So if you see the historical, uh, the Moloch rituals and where they would bring babies and sacrifice them, all ancient cultures have the sacrifice of the virgin, which is really children. And that you can see that in ancient art, you can read it in the history books. It was in the Bible, which is a mix of truth and satanic distortion. You have to sacrifice your firstborn to God, but that God is actually Satan, not the true creator. And
Yep.
so those things are known. And what happened is they continue to this day I mean, massively. This is not even a small thing. This is a global big thing, and it's practiced under the ground. There are spaces under the United Nations, under the Hague, under many uh, medical institutions. There's been preschool scandals like the Presidio and the McMartin. So under the ground everywhere there are children being trafficked and sacrificed in these satanic rituals. This is not only does occur, it's actually extremely prevalent.
Mm. What were your parents doing?
Well, the my mother's side, the Italian side, is where I was taken and used in these different rituals and trafficked. And I'm almost certain that this occurred to her as well. It's a generational thing.
Mhm.
And so she was very dissociated. She actually had different alters. So she could be seemingly normal at times.
Yep.
Other times she would become very, very depressed and actually did try and kill herself many times. I saved her several times from cutting her wrists. Other times she would become very violent and many times almost killed me. She was sometimes used in the rituals, in psychological rituals where I was supposed to make choices, you know. So she was not able to even be aware fully of what was going on.
Yeah.
And she definitely wasn't able to be a mother in the normal sense of the word or protect me. And my father, um, I grew up, like I said, in many different countries, and we would always go to Rome on summer holidays and winter holidays. And then when I was 14, full time after my parents divorced. But when I was taken to Rome, my father was never with us. He himself was somewhat dissociated and had, PTSD. So
Mhm.
I don't know if they, programmed him or threatened him, but I know I tried to tell him what was happening, but he didn't take it in. He didn't do anything. And then at some point, they split up, and I was unfortunately for myself in Rome full time, so I was accessed all the time. But it was an older brother of my mother's, and he did actually come to some of the countries I lived in to do rituals there as well.
Gosh, it's insidious, isn't it? It really is. So they were unconsciously doing a lot of things.
That's the thing that's important to understand. So, the so called elites of this world, the people in the high positions of power and wealth and influence, they will do these kinds of things to their own children. It's basically trauma-based mind control. So it's the use of electric shock and being drugged and being, like I was simulated drowning. You drown the person to the point they lose consciousness and then resuscitate them, being put in these isolation tanks, being tortured in every way you can imagine. All of these things, a lot of MK Ultra, having to watch certain things and listen to certain things and being spun around and being, pulsed with different technologies. They do this to their own to groom them for their future global leadership positions so that they will execute the plan as it needs to be executed. So they consider this to be love. They consider this to be, Lucifer demands these things, and Lucifer demands a blood sacrifice every day, all the time. So a lot of you people may have heard that a lot of celebrities have to have their firstborn child that mysteriously dies. Well, that's one of the things they do. Your firstborn needs to be sacrificed to Lucifer for loyalty. So it's loyalty to this cult. And so a lot of the people that you see that are doing really horrible things to humanity, they themselves have been put through this and so they create altars. This is a scientific formula.
Yep.
Mengele knew it, the Jesuits knew it. You create trauma, the child goes into shock, and then you program in an altar. So people are trained to be super soldiers, assassins, honeypots, all kinds of things, or global leaders.
Yep.
They have altars that do certain tasks and certain things, and then maybe another more front person that doesn't recall what they have done. Now, some of the people in this hierarchy are just purely psychopaths, and they enjoy causing pain and suffering, and it's a mix of both. Now, just because you've been brutalized and programmed isn't really, I'm going to say, an excuse for passing it on, because some of us didn't do that. We were put through that, and it didn't, we were able to exit and refuse to be part of that programming.
Yep.
So it's complicated, but yes, you do have to have some compassion for the way these people are, because a lot of them have really, they put their own through this. So, I remember when my friend Kathy O'Brien, who's a MK Ultra survivor, she told me she saw Bush Jr. in as a child with her in a ritual where they were both being brutalized. So that kind of, if that makes sense, yeah, it's very complicated. It's not black and white.
Mm. Gosh, there's a lot of dimensions to what you just said.
Yes.
A lot of dimensions. And yeah, it brings up a lot of questions in query. Yeah, the word compassion probably challenges a few people out there when they're thinking about the caliber of the people that you're talking about and what they do.
Yeah. Well, again, we have been mind controlled to the point today that everything is binary. It's either or, it's left versus right, or black versus white, or male versus female. And things are shades of gray. It's not necessarily, but they want us in that kind of thinking because that's easy, that's very easy to control us and to divide and conquer us.
That's
So,
a
but I do hold the perpetrators accountable because
yeah.
we all have free will. But
Mm.
at the same time, I say we need to understand where they've come from.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. It's a little bit like I looked into my past at why my dad did what he did to me. But when I saw that his mind was poisoned, and that's the best way of putting it, by his mother, I saw why he poisoned me as well. So that's not letting anybody off the hook like you're talking about. It's just coming to some sort of understanding of what happened to them for them to do what they passed on to somebody else.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, I get you. So, how did you wake up from that? How did you choose something else and start to exit from all of that?
Yeah. Well, even I've had memories of prior to incarnation where I was in a sort of a galactic meeting with other sort of humanoid shaped but different looking beings. And we were talking about planet Earth being in trouble. And I remember volunteering to incarnate here because there are many benevolent beings in other places that are live at a much higher level of consciousness, but you can't interfere, but you can incarnate as a human. And when that happens, you have your memory wiped and you start as a baby. And so I think on some level, I wanted to incarnate in one of the darkest places on earth, which is the Vatican, because it's a war strategy. So I think a lot of us are warriors for God here to help the earth transition out of the darkness in this spiritual war. So I have a memory of having done that. And so when I was really small, I still remembered that for a while. And I remember when I was very, maybe two, thinking, what the hell is this place? Like, where have I showed
Yes,
up? This is
yes.
awful,
Mm.
right? And I remember overhearing them say that I had a lot of gifts and I had a lot of light. So I would be really a good one to turn to the dark. Because see, the dark side, they're severed from the creator.
Yes,
And so they're parasitic. They can't draw organic energy from like we can. It's within us. So they need to take our light and twist it and use it for their dark purposes, right? So I overheard that when I was very small, and something in me said, no, I'm not going to let that happen.
mm.
So I think I forgot what your original question was, but
Well, no, I wanted to know, was there an event? Was there something that made you conscious, something that woke you
oh,
up?
I see.
Yeah,
So I was always to a degree aware that I was here. And then, with all the torture and all that, at some point, I kind of went more unconscious with that. I did reach a point when I was between 17 and 18 where after all and everything that they had been doing for all those years, I had a point where I had enough, like something snapped in me.
right.
And I said, that's it. I'm not, you're not doing this to me or people in my family anymore.
Mhm.
So I stepped into my power and I pushed back. I was trained in different abilities. So, that's the thing they have to be careful of. They can train people, but
Sure.
then if those people turn against them, that's not good because
You've got their trained
there's
skills.
things.
Yeah.
Yes. So they tend to leave most alone at that point and just hope that all the trauma will render us so, unable to really ever recover that who we really are won't shine through and we won't do what we came here to do on this planet. So I had to climb back I did therapy, I did all kinds of things. It was really difficult to recover from all of that. I'm not going to lie. I wanted to kill myself.
That's got to be an understatement, Max.
Yeah, it was so brutal because when you're a child and you're enduring these things that are just beyond impossible, you have to take everything that's happening and put it in a little box and pack it away. You can't really process it because you're in constant trauma for one, and because your psyche, you just can't. It's overwhelming. So it's a um, very kind of beautiful coping mechanism to dissociate. You don't want to stay dissociated forever, but in the moment, it's very helpful. So when some of the things I remembered, some of the more horrible things I repressed and then came back spontaneously in my early 40s. So I did this work, and so a lot of it came back, and that's when, I see what's going on in the outer world. And it's interesting because I've overheard a lot of these plans. So sometimes when I see it, like when I saw what I call convid, I thought, oh, I know what that is. That's part of their end times plan. So in a weird paradoxical way, and I know this from some of my friends who are survivors, because of what we went through, there's a base level of delusion which was shattered. I never thought that the leaders of this planet were good people. I knew they were bad people.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of mind control I didn't have to overcome, paradoxically, because of the horrible experiences I went through. So I think the better you have it, if people believe the government's there to help them or the authorities care for them or the medical system is there to actually heal us, they don't. It's more shocking for a person who had a more normal upbringing to undo the mind control than it is for someone who lived with these perpetrators and kind of understands more how the world works. Does that make
Because
sense?
would you have coping mechanisms that the ordinary person wouldn't have?
Well, extreme dissociation being one. For some reason, I was not ever led down into addictions, which is what people use to cope with trauma. I
Yes.
mean, that
Yes.
didn't happen for me. Um, I I don't know. My coping mechanisms were really, I had a lot of nightmares. I had insomnia. I had trouble sleeping. But once I got out, I just wanted to live and experience everything in the world. And I always had this part of me that wanted, so maybe a weird coping mechanism is always being observing myself and what's making me tick and what's making me think this way and what's making me feel this way, and realizing how messed up my assumptions were, you know. So as an example, if someone, a friend said they would get together with me and then they canceled, my immediate assumption would be that they left me, they hated me, I was worth nothing.
Yep.
So it was a lot of pain, in dealing with people in the world, because and I had an assumption that people were, going to want to hurt me.
Mm.
So I don't know if that's a coping mechanism, but I had to really constantly take that out of my brain and examine it like on a whiteboard and go, wait a minute, is that true? So it took me a long time to realize that there were actually really good people in the world.
Yep.
But a part of me was so desperate for attachment and for love and for connection that it overrode the defenses, and I was able to have friends and relationships. Thankfully, that part of me wanted it so bad that it overrode the part of me that would have kept away. So I guess, I might have been more withdrawn and isolated as a way to, cope and defend.
Again, you're talking dimensional stuff like that was happening within you, that part of you that was born into this world that was very, very aware, she was always there somewhere.
Yeah, yeah,
Always there somewhere. And what I'm hearing is the more you kind of got caught up in the programming and what they were doing to you, the connection became a little bit distorted, but she was always there to keep stepping back in and steering you.
yeah. And then I think we set things up for ourselves in our
Mhm.
lifetimes to push us forward. And so I always look back at different experience. Like I I got undergraduate and two graduate degrees in psychology, and I worked with trauma. So I worked in the prison systems. I worked with the with traumatized homeless people. I worked with children who had been abused. I ran a program for men who batter, domestic violence. So I was always doing something in this arena, and that was part of my path back because I was able to help in a way that I couldn't when I was captive, in the facility and having to watch all these people be done to and tortured. So it was a way to have agency and to feel like the world, I could help the world be a better place. And I had at some point I had a child, and that was definitely pre-planned because that love, I got to really, that opened my heart back up, and it's safe to love an infant that you grew in your own body,
Yes,
and pushed out.
yes.
And then it gave me an idea of what a childhood should look like. I was able to almost like have that through giving that to my own child
Mhm.
and protect her and love her and give her and watch her be who she was. That was so profoundly healing. And I met people along the way who gave me exactly what I needed, whether it was in a way that I didn't like or whether it was in a way that I did like, doesn't matter. I was able to, I feel very blessed, like on some level that divine part of me was always there to guide me through exactly what I needed to go through to recover myself. I don't think that process ever ends till we exit.
Mm.
So I'm not saying I'm, cured. I remember actually once the therapist that helped me through the 10-year process of really doing the deep dive, I asked her once, um, when would I be cured? And she said, honey, only hams are cured. Okay. That doesn't exist. But oh, okay. So I had no patience for process, for the unfolding, because I just wanted the suffering to be gone.
Yeah.
But slowly over time, that shifted, and it's enabled me to help and guide other people through that process. Because I've literally, I think, experienced every trauma that exists on earth.
Yes.
And so I see now that that was something my soul wanted to understand also, because there's no one better to help other people through that than someone who actually intimately knows what that is like.
Yeah.
So I've had to, I think we all go through a process, especially if you remember things that happened to you that were horrific. You go through a process where you feel like a victim because you were, but you have to go past that and reclaim who you are. And I think there's something about that journey that's really important and as a whole human race. So no doubt we've done this long dance with the dark. We've been in this hellhole, but what if that can get healed and then we can take that organic human nature that's so beautiful, like a little child, vulnerable and trusting and loving, but mix it with some wisdom from the experience
Yep.
and then grow to a higher level of who we can be, where we would never allow this to happen again.
Correct. Correct. I'm right there on that path with you because that's what I've figured out. I've stepped into the wisdom of all my experiences in the past. I, like you, fully experienced them all myself and have now turned them into the wisdom that I share with others to really, like you're saying, shift past this dark energy, let it just ride itself out, and let's just create this new reality that we're separating into two different realities now, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah, we really are. And this, they always knew that this would happen now. So the whole end times thing is there was always an end point to this spiritual war, which began, to put it very simply, when Lucifer fell and separated from the creator and created this artificial overlay over organic reality, this matrix that, as people call it.
Yep.
There was always a time when of transition when there was going to be an outcome one way or another. I don't think that was determined, but the timing they knew. And astrologically and in astronomy, it's a cycle of light coming in. It's the end of the Kali Yuga and the beginning of a new age. And so there's all these factors that by themselves raise consciousness and give an opportunity. And so that what we choose is was going to be the outcome. And so I think that was predetermined and they knew that. And so in the last few years, they've been rushing to reset us
Correct.
into the AI-based surveillance state, ideally with brain chips and, so that we would not, because we get too uppity. Our natural state is that we blossom, we thrive, even with all the things they've thrown at us, all the poisoned air and food and water and the pharma and the EMFs and the social engineering and mind control through education and media. We've had like such a deck stacked against us, but
Yep.
you can still see the human spirit and love being there. So I think they knew that this time was coming and they were rushing with the COVID thing and prior to that with 9/11 and
Well, they were
then to
rushing to
get everyone.
disconnect us, to cut that connection to source off
Yes,
in some way.
yes,
But
yes,
even through your
yes.
story, given that they did the worst, they threw the worst that they could at you, she was still there. She was still there,
Yes,
always in the background.
yes.
They could not disconnect you.
Well, no, because see, here's the trick. They can only get us to disconnect it. It's not possible for them to affect our souls and our connection. I mean, yes, they try. They
Yes.
do everything. They've even done metaphysical sealings and things. And I believe, and I hope this doesn't offend people, but religion itself is a mechanism to sever that connection. It makes it seem like it's outside of you, not inside. It makes it seem like it's an authority thing instead of a love thing. So we, though, everything they do, we choose it in free will, technically, right? So they mind control people to inject themselves with a bioweapon, but that was a free will choice. Granted, it's not fair because they lied and they manipulated and they pressured, but even disconnecting from your divinity at some level, we're doing it to ourselves.
Mm.
Now, they're doing a lot of things to make it that way, to push us to that choice. But ultimately, the secret is, and they have to abide by it, they have to abide by free will. So they always have to tell us what they're going to do. And they always have through movies, TV shows, UN documents. I saw that TED Talk years ago where Bill Gates said he would reduce the population through vaccines. They're always saying what it is,
Mm.
but so they mind control us to co-create the world, which is hellish as we see it. But that's the good news because that means we can say no and we can co-create a different world because they need us to do that. creating. They need, even in 3D reality, they need someone willing to fly the plane that sprays us with chemtrails.
Well,
Okay?
we are the greatest creative power on this planet.
Yes.
So they need
Yes.
that power. They need that creative
Yes.
source. They're trying to funnel it and channel it into a certain direction.
Yes.
And it's up to us to
Correct.
choose yes or no.
Yes.
But I think people like
Yes.
you are coming in and you've been through the fire, through the furnace, through hell, right? But still to come out because your job is now to go, I'm still here and I have a message. And they've tried to do something with you to stop that message, but you're not the only one. There are many, many all stepping up around the world now that have, well, they've tried to get rid of in all sorts of ways that are still here and are still letting people know the message that you're the greatest creative source on this planet. Channel it to create heaven.
Yes. Yes. And believe me, I've been messed with and interfered with, even in the last many years, but it's just a mentality that as an example, I like to think of, for example, a mother who took her newborn in to get, 20 vaccines in the first 3 months of life, and then the baby dies. Okay. Now that mother wakes up to what that agenda is.
Yep.
So she can either collapse into a mess and lie there on the floor, or many times people get up and they start to talk, they start to tell their story, right? So her story that will help other mothers not do that to their children.
Yes.
So if you take the trauma and the tragedy and you use it for good, now you've thwarted them and you know,
Yes.
you're changing the world.
And that's what you're doing.
That's what I'm doing. That's what many people are doing. I'm not the only one, but that's what I've been able to do because my revenge is to thrive, is to heal, is to use that experience that I went through, which I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy,
Mm.
to affect change,
Mhm.
to help wake people up, to help people heal, to help people know the truth of who actually runs the world. Because if we believe these creatures, as I, call them, then we will willingly harm ourselves based on what they tell us to do. So if people need to understand that everything we've been lied to about everything. And the
Every,
government is not there to help you. And the global agencies are not there to do good. It's quite the contrary. So if you know, you can protect yourself.
yes. And I also know, though, myself from my own experience, is that I can channel that energy to creating the new world. I turned my
Yes.
back on the world out there. I turned my back on it quite a while ago. I realized that I do not want to give it energy. I do not want to sustain any of it. And I don't do that with malice or anger or anything else. I do that
Okay.
respectfully and just turn my back on it. And that's why I created this radio show to get people like you, to get the ones that are these spiritual warriors, these spiritual guides, to tell their story and spread that energy. Because I believe when you and I connect and we hold a conversation, we create a sonic boom. We create a combined energy that just radiates out into the world. And if that's just flicking a few people on the side of the head and waking them up and getting them to think a little bit about things, then we're doing a good job.
Yeah. And I like your point because there's a whole bunch of things we can do. People can start to grow their own food, even on their balconies. People
Yes,
can
I've done
take
it.
their people can take their children out of the public school system, which is sexualizing and indoctrinating them, and create new learning. This is not, humans should not be put in a classroom for all these, they're not even being taught anything valuable. We
No.
can change that. We can homeschool, we can create micro schools. We can do things like stop patronizing the big corporates that are abusive.
Mhm.
We can create businesses, and they tried to kill them during COVID, but we can start buying from each other. We can
Yep.
buy from farms. We can buy our clothes from someone who sews and makes them. It'll be a lot less toxic there too.
Yes.
We can go out and spread love. Even if you go to the grocery store, you can smile at the cashier, you can make a compliment to someone, you can change the frequency, you can do all these amazing creative things. You know, if you're an artist, you can paint beautiful things. If you're a gardener or a landscaper, you can make beautiful places. So we can put out beauty, we can put out love, we can put out healthy options for each other. And we can, like you said, turn our back on that. I, for example, don't vote anymore because I realized that in the act of voting, I am endorsing the psychopathic system that is harvesting me. Okay. So we can be leaders ourselves within our, and they want us global, unelected, one world global.
Yep.
We need to go to local. We need to be creating local everything, local communities supporting each other. That's the way we make a different world. We withdraw from their abusive world and we create our own. So I love that you said that. I agree.
And you're in Italy as well, right? And I know that I visited there last Christmas. I visited there a few years prior to that. And it really ignited in me that community and
Yeah.
family. Right. And we talked just before the show about how the food's different, the cheeses and the meats and the fruit and veg, and family and community are celebrated. And for me, it just, as I said, sparked something off that this is about community. Get away from the big cities, get away from
Yes.
high rise, get away from all of that and start, I don't know, start going back to the old ways of community and supporting each other. Even if you just put your focus and attention that way and start dreaming about it, you're creating
Yes.
it.
Yeah, because they want their agenda has been to break down the family because that is the most supportive. I mean, granted, unless it's an abusive family, but otherwise the most supportive thing in a human being's life.
Yeah.
And many cultures who have extended families, that's even more support. We're not even supposed to raise a child with two people. That's very stressful. So they've deliberately engineered that, particularly in Western societies, to break that down because that makes us more fragile and open to their mind control. But
Mm.
also, they created big cities for that reason too, because it's not natural, it's not normal. You get stressed out. And, you know, I was in LA a few months ago and I was walking down the street with my daughter, and somebody was standing there at the light, and I said, "Oh, good morning." And then my daughter said, "No, no, don't talk to them. You have to like pretend you don't see other people and look because it's a big city. No one looks at each other, no one greets each other, you
Mm.
know." So I'm in a small town now, and I was out on my terrace the other day, and there was a neighbor on a balcony above to one side who was on the balcony and said, "Hi, Max," because I had met them, you know. And then we started chatting, and then the neighbor on the floor below came out of their place and was looking up and chatting, and then another neighbor who had a little girl. And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm talking with three different families on three different balconies.
Yes.
This is how it's supposed to be,
Yes.
right?"
Yes, it is. And you know, I'm just learning Italian at the moment because I'd like to be able to go over there next time and get more involved. And what I'm finding, I've been told I've got a 96-year-old woman who used to teach Italian, and I've just had some conversations with her. And what I learned from her is you have to say thank you to everybody. When, you know, you have to greet
Yes.
people when you go in somewhere and when you leave somewhere, because if you don't, it's seen as rude. And I thought, what a beautiful way to start changing things.
Yes, that's very funny because I have become very Americanized in my many 4+ decades in the US. So
Mhm.
when I came back, I went into a store and I was a little bit, you know, "Oh, so this thing," and the woman said, "Buongiorno." Like, You have to, hello, how are you? You have to do that or they won't even, so I thought, oh God, I was embarrassed. I thought, oh, I just messed that up.
Yeah.
So I've become reaccustomed to, hello, how are you? It's a beautiful day, blah, blah, blah. And then you say what you need in the store. And then when you leave, goodbye, see you later. When I left a gym class the first time, I just was walking out, and then the instructor was like, bye, buonasera. And you're like, oh, wait. And it's this civilized way of you have to connect
Isn't
before
it
you
lovely?
transact.
Mm.
But we've become very transactional in America and maybe in Australia too, where we forget that we're humans and so that connection is really important.
It was reminding me, and now you and I are reminding everybody else, right?
Yes.
So
We
tell
could
me about,
switch that one little thing. We could do that one little thing. Whether
yes.
your country does it or not, start doing it.
Well, and even maybe uppermost on your mind, are you contributing to the old world or are you behaving and
Mm,
contributing to the new world? Start thinking that way.
yes.
Mm.
Yes. I love that.
Tell me, there's a great quote of yours that I saw on your website. Knowing ourselves means we choose our experiences rather than falling victim to them. I love that.
Mm,
I love that. Choose our
thank you.
experiences rather than falling victim to them.
Yes. Well,
Every,
we are creating it every day,
yep.
you know.
Because if we then default to the victim and being the victim of something, we're co-creating that and it will continue to keep creating.
And we'd be powerless. We
Mm.
wouldn't have any recourse. And that's what they want. They have socially engineered society to become very victimy. Everyone's offended. Everyone feels they're being discriminated against. And also very narcissistic, very me,
Mm.
rather than, thinking about the people around us. So that's satanic. And we don't want that.
Yeah. So your website, Unbroken, please tell me about that. How did that come about? And how are you helping and working with people?
Yeah, so it's unbroken.global, and it's really beautiful because I have people from all over the world, every country. And I started when years ago I had done my healing and I was feeling very frustrated at the amount of children still being abused and trafficked. And so I was saying to God, if you will, or the creator or the source, what the fuck, what the F, this can't occur. And then I kind of heard, well, then do something about it. And I thought, oh, okay. So I started on very shaky ground telling my story. The first few times I started to talk about it, I would
Oh,
sweat. During
gosh.
the interview, I would shake. I would have nightmares that night. I was scared to death, but
Yeah.
I kept pushing through. And then it evolved to me wanting to interview other survivors and put their stories out there. And then that expanded to interviewing people who were changing the world, who were explaining what mind control is, who were teaching new ways of going forward, who had healers of various kinds. So I started to expand and interview a lot of people because I understand that we need inspiration, we need truth, and we need stories, like you say. So I thought of the word unbroken because we're all broken, but we can unbreak ourselves. And like I said earlier, we can restore ourselves to an even higher version than before we were broken through the breakage, right? So that's how it started. And then I started to do seminars. I like them because they're teachings, but they're one time. It's a few hours, and then there's a lot of Q&A. And so I have on my website seminars that I've done that people can purchase for very little.
Okay.
Um, I've exposed the Vatican. I've explained what satanic ritual abuse is, what the matrix is, how to get out of it, just anything that I think can be helpful. So I think teaching is something I enjoy doing. I also, I'm a healer, I'm a therapist. So if people need help, I do work with a lot of survivors, but also others. And then because of this thing where there's those of us that have woken up to a certain degree, we feel a little bit lonely and like misfits in
Yes.
society. So I created a membership where people We do a Zoom once a month and we just get together and we talk about what's going on. And it's just such a nice community, even if it's virtual, to exist with other people who know and who, have woken up and are doing their work. So
Yeah,
there's that aspect of it as well. And there's a lot of interviews that have been done, like you are today, of me on the website also. So there's just resources for people, and I'm just trying to do my little piece in helping people know the truth and do their healing, because I think those two things in particular are a surefire way for us to be able to go forward.
absolutely. Because you're right. When people step out of the reality that they've had, they step out onto the path, I call it the path less traveled. And at first, it can feel quite lonely because we've been
Yeah.
so caught up in the programming of the tribe, that where the masses are, that when we step out on our own, it is very lonely and isolating at first. So it's lovely that you've got a community that people can go and at least start having some conversations or even just listening and observing other people and at least feeling connected in some way.
And I do reels on Instagram every now and then where I try and sort of explain things. So I see, like I saw the MK Ultra hearings and I wanted to explain to people, while that's good and progress, the cult also, when the cat gets out of the bag, like MK Ultra, they seize it and they try and control it. So they're reducing it to certain things only and they're not telling the full story. So people can go and just watch different reels I do on Instagram, and I write for Substack. So I try and write an article every month, dissecting just different things that are going on in the
There's
world,
something
because we want to understand it, we want to see it with clear eyes for what it is, not for the psyop they're trying to pull over us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I was listening to somebody talking the other day, and he was saying that there is so much noise out there, there is so much information, and a lot of it AI generated as well, that people are now looking for authenticity. They're looking for people talking about their experience. And people they know it. They know it. They know, when you listen to somebody standing up in front of you and they've got a sheet of paper and they've got a presentation and they're reading it like that, that's a certain sort of energy. But when you've got someone like you who's standing there telling you a life lived experience and some solutions, there's a completely different energy to that. And people know it. They know it. They feel it. So what you're doing is becoming, absolutely vital now.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's going to
And
cut.
we each do our healing and know ourselves, it doesn't matter if you have patterns that are not so great, as long as you identify them and stop them midstream. But the more we know ourselves and clean ourselves out and unplug from the mind control, the more that discernment comes through, that
Yes.
telepathy comes through,
Yes.
that self-healing of your system and your body comes through. So we have all these gifts. They've been suppressed, but we can take them back.
Well, I see it like there's a higher form of us and a lower form of us. And
Yeah,
the lower form of us is using our five senses. It's using
yeah,
the mind and the body and the five senses. That only sees a certain sort of dimensional reality. And what you're
yeah.
saying is, as you start to clean up to a certain degree, that discernment kicks in. But I say that we've got eyes behind these eyes. We've got ears behind these ears. Yeah, it's like we've got other abilities, like you say, that really do start to turn on.
Yeah. And I think they're going to more and more. The more you do your own work and heal yourself, that's how to change the world. First, start with yourself.
Correct. I was only just saying that to a woman today. I said to her, "You're not supposed to be channeling energy and giving it out to somebody else." I said to God a few years ago, I want an aura that is so charged with beautiful energy that when I swipe past somebody, they change for the better.
Yeah. And that is actually true. The heart itself has a field around it that's 6 feet wide. And, think of the convid 6 feet distance. The heart is the first thing that develops in a fetus, later the brain. The heart has its own brain. They have societally severed us from our heart. They want us in our mind because the mind can be manipulated, but the heart cannot. So your very existence as a healed whole person emits an energetic field. It's invisible, but other people feel it, and you can up level someone just by standing next to them.
Yes,
That's how powerful we are.
that's it. And you're leading the way, my love. You are leading the way.
Thank you.
So I'm going to put the link to your website with the show notes here, so people can get in touch with you and can become a part of your tribe that you've got out there, which is all part of a new world. Um, know thyself. That's what we're here for. Is that right?
Yes.
And what?
Yes. We are divine beings. We are so beautiful and powerful, and we've been reduced deliberately so we can be used as batteries to fuel a horrible system. We need to throw that off and reclaim who we are and use the trauma to become an even higher version. And knowing yourself is the way that you go forward, and you can't be manipulated at some point when you know yourself. You can see what your triggers are, how you might spontaneously want to react to something that's been thrown. But if you know yourself, you can make a different choice in every, it's like a computer program that you can correct while it's running. So if you know yourself, you're immune.
Yes, yes. So how do you
And
use
I
the
teach
trauma?
people how to do that. I
Mm.
teach people, clients, how to do that.
How do you use the trauma?
Well, you heal from it, and you use that experience to go higher, to become a better version of yourself. So after everything I went through, when I see people misbehaving and maybe being nasty to me, I can see the whole picture of what's
Yes,
happening.
yes, yes,
So I see it's actually about them, and I don't take it on anymore.
yes. I see exactly what you're saying. And that's why you became a psychologist, and that's why you started working with other people because you're learning human behavior and how to tune in and how to see things in all sorts of different ways. That's great. That is such a gift, isn't it?
Yeah, and we all have it. We're all here, I think, on this planet now. If we're here right now, I think we wanted to be here to witness the profound transition. This is going to be the first time, I think, in our history that we're not reset yet again,
Yes.
that in fact we free ourselves. So,
You
what an
stop.
exciting time.
You stop the cycle. Absolutely. And
Yes.
one last question. What's your role? What's your role in this change?
To show that you can come back from anything. Because if I did it, you can do it. And it's about taking personal responsibility. Yeah, I had a pretty, if it's a card game, I had a pretty crappy hand.
Yep.
Okay. But
Yep.
I did not let that keep me in a victim and just give up.
Yep.
So you can take anything and you can transmute it and transform it. And it's kind of like if you pull a rubber band back, the further back in terms of maybe negative experiences, when you let go, you actually go further forward. So
Yeah.
maybe some of the stuff that is unfair and but that's going to make your evolution that much faster. So I think I'm just here to be an example of what any of us can do, and hopefully I'm here to spread love and to help people heal and to tell my story because I love what you said. It's through our stories that we learn, and just to show that I'm an imperfect person, but yet I'm being the best version of me that I can be, and I'm constantly adding and striving to be an even better version, and that's what I hope we can all do. So if
That's
that helps, then I'm glad to be here and shine my light. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I have thought, what the hell? You know, but yeah, it's a commitment to be here as a human. And so I'm just going to see it through.
I love that. And you know what I get out of what you just said? Use your trauma to catapult you into an amazing
Mhm.
future. Hmm?
Yes.
How
Yes.
beautiful is that? Max, thank you. Thank you so much. I find what you're doing is just liberating and sharing so much love that is much needed into this planet and into the people. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me, Helen. And I've really enjoyed our conversation, and hopefully it helps and inspires some people.
Oh, you bet it will. All right, Max. Thank you.
All right.